Welcome to, I guess the first official during the season episode of the SC Hub's NBL SuperCoach season. My name's Barnesy from the NRL All-Stars podcast. I'll be jumping on this year. And these other boys you would have already seen in the preseason, I think. We've got the Fantasy Phoenix, Chad, and also DVG, the still defending champion, you can say, mate. So welcome, boys.
Thanks, mate.
G'day, Barnesy. How we going?
Pretty good. I didn't get to jump on in the preseason, but we've now got NBL round one done and dusted. I think it's thrown up the normal spanners that all the different various sports of Supercoach does. And particularly, I think, especially because it's the second season of NBL Supercoach, and the first is the official fantasy sport for the NBL. I think there's a lot of new people too, so there's some good things to talk about from round one. I guess probably starting off with, how did we go? Phoenix, your round one. How'd you find it? How'd it go for you?
Yeah, this is a very poor start on my end. I similar to Vern's, I looked at my team and thought round two, there's not really any trades I'd want to make. So I thought, well, let's use one. I went risky and went Tyrell Harrison and thought, if I'm going to bring him in, we may as well captain him against a depleted front lineup for the Breakers, and that did not go so well. So I was sub 200, 193, and that is a terrible rank for the start of the year. I'm outside. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's 5 figures, so we're not looking good so far.
Bad start. A lot of time left.
Not as bad as last year. I had a 10 from Tyler Cook on the double game week where he got injured after the first 4 minutes. So yeah, it could be worse, but yeah, not great. Hopefully things move a little bit better going forward.
DVG, you had a strong week. I thought your score was excellent because I scored the same as you. So
yeah, right. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I scored 258, which has me 176, which is great. Look, I've sort of tweeted about it a couple of times or posted. Sorry, we're on X now, not Twitter. That I was more relieved more than anything to just have an okay score to sort of start the year after coming off winning last year. So really happy with the setup for round two as well. So yep.
Yeah, I actually was having a poor round, so I got lucky catching you because I went the pod route of Bradshaw, and I did think, seeing a little bit of him before he hit the NBL and stuff, I just thought that he would translate quite well. And to be honest, I'm a little bit in two minds about him still because I watched that game as one of my big pods, hoping that he'd score sort of 30-ish, and then anything above it would have been gravy. But obviously scored 17, but it was weird because he shot terrible. I think it was like 2 of 13. But I thought that he looked pretty athletic. So, and then he had a really good block, I think, in the second quarter. And he just looks long. He looks like a good basketball player. It just didn't translate. And he played the minutes and stuff too. So I didn't know how to feel about it because it was a terrible score. But at the end of the day, I had guys like Rocco, like most of us on the bench, and White, and it was going bad. But then I had the captaincy on Jalen Adams, and that's the only reason I managed to match your same score of 258, mate, because Adams really saved my bacon this round. So that was huge. But as far as the players go, boys, we had some pretty good performances for round one, highlighted by Adams. He came in as the last game of the round and scored a 54. I was pretty big on him because I think he was 5%. I kept banging on about him being only 5% owned. But by the time we actually got to tip-off, I actually think during the round he dropped to 3.4%. So his ownership was really low. Likewise, PJC, 49 points was big, only 8.2% owned. And of the new players, Days was probably the big one. He had 43 points. So there was 6 40-plus scores. And, pretty much the big guns kind of did what we expected them to do, I guess, Fantasy Phoenix.
Yeah, I'd say so. Adams was definitely higher than what I picked him to do in that stacked Kings lineup, but he looked phenomenal, back to his MVP best, knocking down shots, facilitating for everyone. And I guess having been in that system with a few of the guys last year and the return of Cooks this year, he's got a little bit of fluidity going with him. So, yeah, that was pretty big. Days is the one that I was really impressed with, obviously as a Hawks man, but seeing him coming in, crashing the glass just as hard as he was preseason, it looks like he's going to be out to prove himself, back up his words of bringing the chip back to the gong, but obviously wanting to get himself back into or towards the NBA. So he was really, really impressive. Who do you think stood out the most to you, Dave?
I mean, I thought Derek Walton Jr. was just phenomenal. Start of the year with 39 SuperCoach points. He also had that score, and he didn't play the last 6 or so minutes of the game, I believe, because of the scoreline. You know, his assists are just they're just beautiful. Like just what he does with the ball and how he handles it. I was so impressed with the way that he handled it. I think for that team, SEM really, really, really need that type of player. And I think seeing that performance really actually solidified for me that he has to be their primary ball handler, not Sobe. Like it's just, I mean, I think we all knew that, but now that we've seen that in the flesh, I think we've really seen he has to be that primary ball handler for them. But look, I thought he was great. Obviously, Days, like you guys have mentioned, I just thought his enthusiasm under the rim was incredible. I just thought, I saw it in the Blitz. He played 30 minutes in that Blitz game, and I saw it. I was like, man, this play's going to cause some massive problems, in the league. And yeah, he did. He just seemed as soon as the ball was there, he seemed to be there every time. There's another rebound. There's another rebound. There's another rebound. So yeah, so I think that those guys were probably the ones that stood out for me.
Yeah, some guys just have that sense of no matter where they are under the basket, they know where the ball's going to go off the rim. They're the ones that just get there first. He definitely looks like one of those players.
Absolutely.
Some of the veterans as well of the NBL and SuperCoach that are staples. Bryce Cotton obviously had his 42. As a non-Bryce Cotton owner, I was actually pretty happy with the round. I was sort of saying to a few friends of mine that were new to SuperCoach and kind of asked me a few questions and stuff for NBL. I was like, oh, look, as long as he's sort of 40 or below, I'm pretty happy with that, even though that's a good score with Bryce Cotton because of his price point. And look, 42, it was really good. But I've got to say, like, I was kind of buoyed by the fact that it was only 42 because he hit 8 threes and he was just scoring at will and all the threes were killing me, but his peripheral stats were reasonably small. And so, I mean, I think that's one of the things with Bryce that's going to be interesting. He's coming in with a 42 and he's going to be one of the best NBL SuperCoach players for the year and one of the best NBL players overall. But I was quite happy with him only going 42, and I'm hopeful at his price point anyway that he's going to be a guy that I can keep leaving for a little bit because if he's going to go that crazy scoring wise and still only score 42, it bodes well because he's going to have games where he scores 20 and hits 2 threes. Yeah. And that's going to be a lot more manageable. Obviously, when his price comes down in future weeks, it's a bit different. But opposite though, Milton Doyle, I've always loved. He's one of my favorite NBL players. And he came in and scored a 41. And he's someone who I would have loved to have had, but his price point of 350 really priced him out of the market. So we do have all these other guys. And I mean, I didn't even mention Pindo, who hit 4 threes, I think. So I mean, these guys that we all expected to be sort of stars of the league and of the SuperCoach season, they're all hitting. Cooks was great at 38 as well. So, I mean, bodes well. Were you guys kind of surprised, though, that we didn't have more of these new imports beating out some of these, NBL staples?
It's a bit of a hard one, obviously, because a lot of them are in teams where, aside from, say, a Days, but there's a lot of them, like you look at the Phoenix and they've got the 2 that are side by side. With the teams that have just one new import, it's a little bit easier integrating, but with the 2, I think it's a bit tougher. Looking at some of the Phoenix guys, both Hurt and Wisekamp did fairly well. But yeah, it's tough adjusting to the new league, especially with a few teams that had a pretty limited preseason having a full run. Would have expected a little bit more out of, Bradshaw was another one for you, Barnesy. Obviously, Taron Armstrong. Thought he might have done a little bit better, as you touched on before. But I think we're in good stead with a few of them moving forward.
I mean, DVG, the other thing too, like we'll move on to a little bit of strategy chat and stuff as well, particularly because there is so many new NBL SuperCoaches, and you're a great guy to talk strategy as a defending champ. I was looking at this going, look, I think strategy-wise, one of the things with the NBL is that we have such big roster overhauls and changes every single season. So we can always talk about, oh, look, this guy's got good matchups or whatever at the start, but you don't really know. And for me, like, I'm really quite standoffish on saying I want these guys round one because they've got great matchups, because teams we don't know yet. But after round one, I sort of thought we could look at it and go, geez, to me, now going into round two, someone like the Bullets, I kind of don't want a piece of, and I kind of want to be playing against. And even though the Phoenix showed some good signs, like guys like Hurt did some good stuff, and even them, I thought, geez, I'm a bit worried about them. And DVG, you mentioned the last 6 minutes, Walton didn't even play. Those two teams, that could be some issues for them at the moment. And we kind of get to see that after round one a little bit, don't we, as far as where the chips are going to fall on the top echelon teams, the middle of the road, and maybe the guys that are a bit dangerous in the bottom.
Yeah, look, I think Cairns.
I meant to mention Cairns too.
Yeah, I think Cairns. Look, I know Taryn's not there, but they were probably the biggest disappointment for me, because I actually really liked the looks of some of their new pieces. Like, I really, really liked them. But they just it just wasn't there on the night. And Illawarra, I don't know if it's just because Illawarra are awesome, and Illawarra do look awesome. They looked awesome in the Blitz when I saw them, and they looked phenomenal against Cairns. But there were just so many, I guess, of those 1%ers on a court that Cairns just weren't doing. And I was like, man, I said it early on to my wife when, I mean, she wasn't really watching, but I just said, oh, this is going to end up in a blowout. It's just like, oh, what do you? I said, it's just, you can just see. I said, it just looks like it's going to be that way. I said, Illawarra is going to have their way with them. So, yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, like from a strategy point of view, I haven't necessarily paid too much attention as of yet as to the whole who's going to be an easier matchup and stuff. I've more been focused, I guess, on the double game week schedule. But you're right, from those first things those first couple games, I think that there are some trends we can look at. I think, for instance, like SEM, like I think they're probably going to give up a few rebounds, but by the looks of it. So if you've got someone that you're targeting, a center or a forward from the other side, can possibly look at matchups like that. But it's more of my focus has been around the double game week schedule at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix, I'm the same, but one of the things that I looked at for this week is there's obviously 4 teams on a double game week, so you're not going to get guys from all teams. So, if one of them Sem and the other 3 teams you think are going a bit better, that could be a good separator on making your decisions for you too.
Potentially, I guess the other thing that hurts is unlike, definitely last year and previous years, we don't have multiple teams to have back-to-back doubles. It's only Melbourne. So a lot of people won't go too heavy in those other teams. So we will have some separation there. Having a Phoenix guy, maybe 2 Hawks guys and a couple of Melbourne guys is probably what we're going to see. And obviously yourself having a big piece from the Kings. So we're going to have a little variation with that schedule. And yeah, with Dave, it's probably better to look at the early schedule, and then when we get a little bit more towards getting the cash cows that are on the bubble and a bit of sideways trading for the matchups a little bit later in the season. But for now, we want to try and get the value and the core pieces of the team in place early on.
And price changes, there's been a bit of confusion about that, but people are going to need to look at it now, because obviously with the double game weeks this week, we're going to get our first series of price changes. DVG, I know that you actually spoke to SuperCoach about it, and they ended up tweeting about some teams aren't going to actually get that first game counted in their price changes. You want to maybe explain that to people so they understand how that's going to work?
Yeah, so look, to be honest, guys, it wasn't actually me who spoke to them about it. It was actually our good friend on the hub, Pleb, who reached out to them and got some clarification on it. So as we know, with any of the SuperCoach platforms, right, we've got price changes that start kicking off from once they play the third game. However, there's a bit of a nuance with the double game week schedules, and look, I don't know the background, but I'm assuming it's something to do with how they can calculate the algorithm works or whatever that determines the price rises. But for anyone that has a double game week that's falling on the round 3, right? So in round 3, so those teams from memory are Cairns, Adelaide, Melbourne, it doesn't count because Melbourne will have already had a double game week, so they've already had a 3. And Perth. Okay, so for those 3 teams, so for any time, and I'll just read out what the tweet says. Player prices will adjust after they have played 3 games. For those, however, who are scheduled that see them play 4 games before lockout, their round score will not be taken into consideration for their price rises. So I guess the impact of that is, let's say a very highly owned person in Ben Henschel that's 69,000 DPP played absolutely phenomenal, right? Scored 27, I think, from memory.
Mhm.
The challenge now is everyone, if you didn't know this, because I'll be honest, I didn't know this rule. So all of a sudden people were going, oh my God, 69,000, 27, big, low BE, let's get him in. This game will not count to his first price rise. So, and then I guess the disappointing thing might be is let's say a whole bunch of people trade him in this week, as they should. Let's say he only scores 5 this week. That means that is the first score that will, be calculated as part of his price movement. So the 27, yes, it's going to count to his overall score, which is great for people who already own him. But from the cash generation point of view, that score is totally ignored because of that double that falls in between their third and fourth game.
Yeah, it's a little kink in Supercoach where I just think it's early days, but unfortunately, it needs to be treated like all the other sports. And obviously, all the other sports, be it AFL, NRL, it's every weekend is the one game that counts. So every weekend is basically a game. And unfortunately for NBL, there's a lot of double game weeks. So it doesn't quite work. And I mean, there's no other way that I think that they can clearly do it because it needs to be done after the round is over. You can't have price changes during the round. I've seen people mention that, but there's a lot of different issues with that aside from the technical side of it and everything and administering it. You've got a point where maybe somebody's going to make a trade during a round or want to bring someone in, and then all of a sudden they cost more and they can't do it anymore. Likewise, when you're reversing a trade, you can't really reverse a trade and make money out of doing that or lose money out of doing that either. So there's a lot of different factors, I think, which is just unfortunate just because of the format. But maybe we'll have it solved in future seasons with smarter people than us coming up with some ideas. But let's look at trading because that's what everyone wants to talk about. Market watch for round 2 is very busy. When we're having a look at the most popular options to get out of sides, number 1 is Big Rocco. Now, I've got to admit, I've thought about this one myself, boys. So I'm interested in some other opinions. So Big Rocco came in at 95,000, owned by over 42% of super coaches. And it just seemed so low that he had to come good, even without a good Brisbane Bullets schedule. He's only scored 5 points. I was kind of expecting him to play around 14 minutes a game. Particularly because they're going to want to get his draft stock up, and I'm sure his agent and himself want to do that too. And also because he's already had his development season last year, so it seemed to make sense. And him playing 14 minutes a game was Supercoach gold. That was shut the gate. It's fine. Unfortunately, if he gets half of those minutes, it's an issue. And at the moment, if he keeps going like he did in round 1, he'll actually lose money. So I'm sure you both probably own him. I mean, Phoenix, how are you seeing Rocco at the moment as a trade out?
Well, I actually went against Rocco for the schedule side of things. Initially I had the 2 Melbourne bigs, but then pivoted to have Tyrell in that disastrous wrist move. But I guess it's hard watching that game, obviously with having Tyrell Harrison, but New Zealand wanted to try and exploit the fact that they didn't have their main big man. So playing a little bit smaller doesn't always bode well into traditional bigs like a Rocco or a Tyrell's hands. They don't really stretch the floor or anything. So can see why the minutes were a little bit lower. If I did have him though, I'd probably look to move him to a couple of other cheaper players with some DPP that we might speak about a little bit later. One we have already just spoken about, but yeah, 95,000. Their schedule isn't great. The benefit of that is you can hold this week, and if he does well, he'll get to a better BE for round 3. If he doesn't, then you can move him without losing any cash. That's probably how I'd play it if I did have him.
Yeah, Dave, what about you? You've probably got him, I assume. Surely 2 out of the 3 of us don't own him.
No, I know. I don't own him. it's quite the scandal because in my team reveal in the News Corp publications, I had him in there, but I did tweet out my team changes, so I didn't get blow-ups about me changing my team. But look, I just was worried about the double game week schedule, and I actually put the Perth youngster, the next star in there, who actually Manso he played okay, but only played 14 minutes himself. He is a higher price point, so probably need more than him. But look, if I had him, if I had Rocco, I would be trading him. Look, we've got we've got unlimited trades there, so I think that we use him. I think that there's just a risk that he definitely will lose money, and you could probably flip him to via duels. Surely that there would be a way in the teams that everyone is structured that you'd be able to slot him in somewhere. Slot a replacement in there somewhere that's got a better BE than what Rocco does, who's potentially going to be playing on a double game week in round 2.
Yeah, it's really hard because I also look at it and go, look, Harrison didn't have the best game anyway, and he only played 28 minutes, which is good, but it's not like he played 34 or something. And despite him having a bad game, despite him playing not more than 28 minutes, Rocco still only gets 7 minutes. And it was a game that they came back in, but I mean, it did get away from them at one point quite a bit, where I sort of thought in the third quarter, surely it's Rocco time, and it is one of the things with the Bullets where if they are going to go badly, you'd expect that they're going to pump minutes into Rocco. We just might not see it early enough, though. So it is a worry. And because we can trade so much in Supercoach NBL, it is a lot easier just to dump these guys and burn a trade, getting them back again later. And that's probably what I'm going to try and do. The only thing that I will say that's making me potentially hold him and not trade him is, who do you go to? And if you don't want to use a boost and you really want to get in someone like Days or something like that, you're probably not going to have enough leftover money to grab someone that's going to be that good. The one that I'm looking at, boys, which is going to make me probably trade Rocco, is the rugby league player that got called into his mate's social team because they were short a fifth player, and he came in and just started at centre, young Lepepe. He might be a downgrade option from Rocco for me, just to bank a bit of cash and have him on a double game week. So that was probably the only one I could come up with that kind of made sense, I think.
Yeah, he was one of the cheaper guys that I was mentioning with DPP alluding to earlier. I already have him instead, but that would be a great piece to go to. He had more opportunity to score what he did. It's just one of those games didn't quite go his way. Like, still beat his break even, and I think he'll score pretty well over the double too. But yeah, there was, a few boards that didn't go his way, a ridiculous unsportsmanlike foul called against him that probably would have resulted in another board. But he's definitely a better option this week. He's got the double. He should go up in cash. And worst case, even if Rocco comes out and has a really good game, he could just reverse it the week after to catch both price rises if that's how it pans out. But yeah, of the two, I definitely prefer Lepepe.
How many minutes did Lepepe end up playing? Sorry, I'm trying to get the NBL side up, but of course,
I'll double check off the top of my head. I think it was about 18 or something.
18, yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue too. That I'm, I guess, not worried, but Oliver came off the bench. That could change pretty quickly, and it's I still think that the upside too. If the Kings blow some teams out, then maybe he still is fine off the bench anyway, especially on a double game week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just trying to find the minutes for you too.
Yeah, it was 17-11, so just under.
Yep.
So look, Bryce Cotton. Dave, is he like a must trade out? Obviously, we spoke glowingly about his 42, but NBL SuperCoach is so much about context. 42 when everyone's on a singles, great. 42 when 4 teams are on a double, not so much, especially with the price point. So do you see him as like a must trade out, or do you think the teams could just potentially hold him at that price still for a single game week?
Look, I mean, someone like Bryce Cotton is not a must trade out, right? He was the highest scoring SuperCoach player last year for a reason, right? And we saw what he did in this first game, and I couldn't believe it when I saw him playing the way he did. I thought, man, we've got like 50, 55 hitting us, and as a non-owner, I sort of took a sigh of relief. Look, I'm always of the perspective that on court you need to have double game week players, right? If you haven't got injuries and all that sort of stuff, you need to be aiming for that. And when we've got elite options like a Jalen Adams or a Derek Walton Jr. that you could literally downgrade Cotton, for this week and get those doubles on, you would do it. And look, I'm of the opinion that if you are a Bryce Cotton owner, you wouldn't have enough money to be an owner of Jalen Adams or Derek Walton Jr. Just with the way it is. Amazing if you are. Like if you've found out a way to do it, great. But I don't think you would be. I just look at, we've seen how Derek Walton Jr.'s potential scoring is. We've seen what Jalen Adams' potential scoring is. So if you can get two of those and you can get a price rise, then you might as well just trade Bryce out, have the two things of the games and get a price rise, out of one of those guys. And if you really, really want, you can bring Bryce back in the next week if you really want. But look, I'm personally sort of holding off on getting Bryce until their longer stretch of games, which I think is round six. Round six. Is that their longer stretch, or is it round 7?
6 or 7. They've got a stretch of a few, and that's going to be the ultimate time to get him. I think that you're on the money anyway. Like when you can buy someone.
Round 7. Yeah, round 7. So they've got a double game week in round 3, but then they don't have another double game week until round 7. But then they've got 5 in a row. So me personally, I've had a very clear mind that I'm not going to start with him. Spread the funds out more evenly within my team, and then get him for that longer stretch then.
Yeah, and that's the thing is as well, with his price point, you hit the nail on the head as far as the rest of the team goes. Like, you're just not going to have the firepower to score the points, and scoring the points in NBL SuperCoach is one of the most important things. In NRL, you can catch up 400 points in a round. Particularly last year when there was a lot of variance last season. It's low scoring in NBL SuperCoach relative to the other codes, so dropping 20 points, 30 points in a round is quite large. And if you're doing that waiting to make money and waiting for guys to come good a month later, you're probably playing the wrong strategy, because obviously you've got basically unlimited trades. Look, Phoenix, I'm just going to be outlandish here. I think trading Jack White is crazy. He's the third most popular trade out. I think it's very short-sighted. It goes against all the cardinal rules of SuperCoach NBL. He's got good pedigree. Yes, he had a bad game, but he's cheap. So for the money, it was fine. And that's his flaw. And the biggest one is, don't trade a guy on a double game week that's good. And he's on a double game week and he's good. After one game, someone with his pedigree, I'm kind of surprised. I'm wondering if a lot of these, 6.8% of SuperCoaches trading him out are, I guess, probably a bit newer to the NBL or a bit newer to basketball and just rage trading because of his 19 points.
That's probably the only thing I can think of where you make that trade at the start of the week as soon as the game opens as a bit of a warning, like, hey, pick up your performance, but then you reverse it straight away after. That's the only reason I could see. Jack White I still think he'll be in the top 10 for scoring for SuperCoach. He is one of the best youngsters especially for this game too. He loves rebounds. He can score the basketball. His shot's getting even better. He had a few turnovers that were unavoidable is probably the wrong word to use. I think he finished with 3 or 4, but 2 or 3 of them weren't really his fault. It was kind of someone else messed up. It gets credited to him. A few of those go the other way, and he's getting a mid-20 score. But the other thing is he still hit his break even of 19. So it's not as if he scored really poorly and he's going to lose cash this week and you're a bit worried with that. He most likely is going to go up money this week with a couple of good games. But as you said, trading someone on a double is not the best idea, especially when we only have 4 teams, and especially when they're the only team with back-to-back doubles. So, Yeah, Jack White's got to stay in the team.
He could outscore everybody this week. He could be the number 1 scorer for the week. Obviously, Dave, you think it's crazy too?
Oh, mental. Like, you know what? I could justify it if United only had the 1 double game week in round 2. But Melbourne are the only team that go double game week. And the other teams that are on next week don't have, we're going to be in a transition period from our Illawarra pieces, our SEM pieces, and our Kings pieces. It won't be on a double next week. The only pieces that will be are our United pieces. So you've got a bloke that, I know not everyone got to the Blitz, but let me tell you, I saw this bloke in the flesh just wow. Like he is going to be great. He scored great. SC wise is the thing. You know what? 19 be great. Like he's done exactly what I saw a lot of blow ups on social media going, oh, Jack White, huge disappointment. And it's because they're comparing him to a lot of the amazing scores we saw on the weekend. But he hit his BE. That's essentially, a worst case scenario. If we can hit your BE, we're sweet. Okay, we're looking for more, no doubt about it. And with him having 4 games over the next, 2 weeks, I just, that's mental. But anyway, it's people have their strategies.
He didn't get any defensive stats at all.
No.
That's something I expected he's going to pick up with. He's got good athleticism. He's a good basketball player. He's come from the NBA. And one thing that I think people forget, even those of us that are basketball nerds, he's coming to a new team in Melbourne United, and Melbourne United have a lot of moving pieces that are different, and he's not one of the guards. So he did what a good basketball player with some maturity and experience should do. He took a bit of a back seat. He let Delhi lead the team. He let some of the other guards run the play, and he made really good cuts, and he did the right things off the ball. Now, I expect once he's more comfortable in the coming weeks and even this weekend, we see Jack White be a little bit more assertive, looking for more of his shots, being a bit more vocal. But he was a really good teammate, and that's better than the opposite of that, which is another guy on here. And I don't want to say he's a bad teammate because I don't know. But I was really worried about not owning Kendrick Davis. And then there was like some rumors and rumblings and things on social media that he maybe wasn't meshing well. And you do see with some of the imports that maybe some of them have a little bit of an ego at times. And I was really worried not to own him, and I had him in iterations on my side and then not having him. And I was pretty relieved. He ended up scoring okay, but I think that everyone expected him to be one of the top scorers, and 29 points wasn't quite there. He ended up picking it up too. Like at the start of the game, I actually thought he was going to score maybe sub 20, and he picked it up. But there was a lot of red flags there. Without a double this week, I understand people selling him for sure. And it was like he stepped out twice in a row, and his attention to detail and doing the things that I was so glowingly praising Jack White for about being a good basketball player, a good teammate. He was very much playing as an individual, which a lot of imports do. Give him time, he'll probably be a lot better. He got good assists. But stepping out a couple of times, just a bit of body language stuff and everything else, he might actually have a bit of a tougher adjustment than what we thought, because talent doesn't just get you to the top of the NBL. You need to have all the other stuff. So, I mean, Chad, how do you see Kendrick Davis? People jumping ship off him for this week.
Yeah, I think it's probably a fair call. With the schedule having the 2 singles to start, he was a player I was high on, but not for SuperCoach early. The thing with Adelaide, obviously, it's going to be hard, especially with another one of their players that did a lot better early on than we thought he might have. But they've got very good talent at the top end. They're not a deep team, but they're very highly talented at the front. So him trying to mesh in, I thought he would be picking up more assists than what he was, but it seemed like, he's trying to force that shot. But the big thing for a lot of people, particularly owners, that could take as a positive, he was up against the best defense and the best wing defense in the league. Like this is a lot of the NBL pundits saying this is like the greatest defensive guards and wing set that the league has ever seen. So, he's got Bull Qual on him, and then Bull Qual picks up a couple fouls, and then Isaiah Liafa's on him. So it wasn't the easiest day for him, but yeah, I think if you've got him, there's quite a few pieces that we've already mentioned. If you can shift across to one of those guys for the double game week, it's probably the better move.
Yeah, welcome to the NBL, Kendrick. Dave, did you end up starting with him? Sorry, I don't remember your team reveal. I did see it.
No. Like
the 2 singles
again,
probably
because anyone that had the 2 singles to start off with, I basically it felt like on court pieces I didn't start with. I mean, I started with Henschel because I thought it was a bit of a no brainer, and then I did a little bit interesting thing with the the young kid from Perth, Almansa. But I just any of those premium pieces, I was like, look, I don't want to risk getting an injury. I don't want to risk starting him as someone like him and not having him on the double, and then someone else in my team having an injury in week 1 and all of a sudden going, now I'm in panic stations, or a worst case scenario, copping 2 injuries, then I'd had no hope of getting those pieces on court for the double game week. So luckily it didn't start with him. It's hard because my plan was I was going to bring him in. Like, we all have these plans, right? It was like round 3. That's my target. That's where I target. But I'm sort of like you guys. I wasn't thrilled with what I saw, but we get another look at him this week, so we'll get to see what he does.
A little bit similar to White, although not as bad, because I can see some reasons why you would trade out Sam Froling. He has a double game week though this week, and he plays Brisbane first up. I think he'll eat Brisbane alive, so I would want to hold him. But I guess at 350,000, there's 350,000 reasons for people to trade him if they own him, and the big one will be a lot of teams might not be able to afford someone like a Jalen Adams, or they're going to some of these other double game week guys. He scored 28, but I will say, like, what he was doing seemed better than 28 SuperCoach points. And this was the issue that I had with Froling last year. He looks really good. He does a lot. The box score looks good. And then you look at his SuperCoach points. It's good, but it's not great. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't love him last year in my short period of owning him. There was a lot of 28s, 27s, and it's good, but it's not a 35. It's not a 38. It's not hitting in the 40s that often. So I understand people doing it. Chad, you're a big Hawks fan. You're going to talk people off the edge of doing this trade because quite a few owners are doing it. He's pretty highly owned at 17%.
Yeah, I think what you said, this matchup will suit him a little bit better. They'll back him in. Not that he played low minutes against Cairns, but obviously Brisbane have got 2 key bigs, which will help Brisbane as well. But they should play them more minutes against Froling, so that'll be a bit more of the down low battle. So if you have got him on the double, there's not massive reasons to trade. The only scenario I could sort of think of, as you touched on with cash, maybe if you went, say, a Froling down to a Days to make that 70, 80,000 there, and that allowed you to go a Kendrick Davis up to Derek Walton Jr. or something like that. So you can still get that extra double game week piece and a solid player at the same time. But Froling's going to be up and down. I mentioned in the preseason pod that someone like a Keanu Pinder is going to be up and down. Froling will have that as well. He'll have those big double games, but then he'll have the games like this or a touch worse where he'll score that mid to high 20s, and that's kind of all he'll do. But the big rivalry match against the Kings as well in this round, I see him going fairly well. I wouldn't be rushing to jump off, but if it allowed you to facilitate a move, then there's worse plays you could make.
Yeah, very team specific, I guess, because there's some teams that will need that money. If you're just making it for the sake of, you've got 2 trades and maybe rethink it. Dave, Casey Prather, I was off him, and I think it's a good trade out, to be honest, because he's around 140k, and I didn't start with him for that reason. At 140k, I didn't like the price point. I didn't like that he was going to be coming off the bench, and I didn't like the fact that he's 33, 34 years old. And I had inklings that Brisbane maybe didn't have the strongest team in the NBL. So too many flags for me, and I think that probably round 1 supported that, and people could probably downgrade him, make 60 or 70k to use that elsewhere pretty wisely this round.
Yeah, look, it's again one of these things that it's always hard because I'm last year I attribute a lot of my success to placing such a heavy focus on the double game weeks, and I was very, very conscious of the Brisbane schedule this time around. I was at pains to tell anyone I knew that was signing up and anyone to just not start with anyone from New Zealand or Brisbane. Now, look, I think that he will actually be really good at some point through the season. I just it's an awkward price point. There's no doubles there. In and around that price point, you've got people, and this has happened more so because of the injury in the team, but it looks like a player like Lat Mayan, who I think's 10k less than him or something, looks like he will for the first 3 to 4 rounds be playing 23, 24, 25. I think he actually played 26 minutes in that game the other day, which, that man's going to have doubles in rounds 3 and 4. So at that same price point, if I was looking at those two players, I'd go, okay, well, at that price point where I've got to massage, certain things in my team to make it work, if I've got a bloke who I know is going to have doubles in rounds 3 and 4, I'd much prefer to have him over someone like Casey. So
100%. And look, there's a long list of popular trade outs we're not going to talk about because if you're not trading that out, you've stopped playing NBL SuperCoach, I think, already. So, like, Tyler Robertson didn't get any minutes. Jonah Bolden was disappointing. Isaac Humphries scored his first bucket of the year about 3 minutes before the game ended. Tyler Harrison had a shocker as well. So, I mean, all these guys make total sense. And it's one of those things in NBL SuperCoach. You can't be holding guys that are underperforming. Again, if it's the other sports, stick with them. If it's NBL SuperCoach, burn those trades. You've got to get those double game weeks and the points now. The trade-ins, the most exciting part of the podcast. Jalen Adams, obviously the most traded-in player. Disappointing for me as someone who had him round 1, but not everybody's getting him in. And this is one of the good things that people have to remember, right? That there's multiple good options. There's multiple problems with people's teams. And at his price point at close to 400,000 at 392, he's not that easy to get in. So, his ownership isn't going to be as high as it probably should be this round, which is great. Now, we do have to talk about the games. It is a double game week, so I think it's a no-brainer. They do have to travel to Perth first up, though. And then they've got back at home in Sydney, they've got Illawarra. Now, it's not an easy trip to be making, but I just think that Jalen Adams is far and away a no-brainer for me as far as the number one guy to get in, partially because not that many people can get him in as much as they should. And the other reason, he's got a double game week, and that makes him a huge captaincy choice. Obviously, if he repeats round 1 performance, he scores 108 points this round. So I think that the market knows what they're doing.
Oh, for sure.
I was just going to ask a question with the travel. Did they stay?
Yeah, I think I heard that they're staying over in WA rather than making the trip back, because there was some social media about doing Rottnest or something like that. I think I saw.
They definitely are. It's just the fact that they've got to come back and that they're going to pretty much be on Perth time still. When they do.
Yeah. And I understand. Look, I actually think look, if you've got the money, and after what he did, makes sense, right? Totally makes sense. And for anyone who owned Bryce Cotton, Jalen Adams is expensive, but he's still 60,000 less than what Bryce is, so you would do it. I do think that both these teams that he's playing, though, are going to be a tougher test defensively than what he had in that first game. But his ceiling's there, and SuperCoach is all about that ceiling, right? That's what we want to chase. So I totally understand why he's the most popular trade in.
Yeah. Chad, are you going to be getting him in?
Well, I started Derek Walton Jr. and Shaylee as my pair, so I'd have the two doubles early up. If I had a Bryce Cotton, that I'd probably go to him over Derek Walton Jr. But yeah, he looked really good round 1, didn't he? The only thing, as Dave mentioned with the matchups, Illawarra, obviously we saw what they did to Bryce Cotton when they swept the Perth series last year, and Jalen Adams obviously very similar there. That the dominant guard piece. So I feel like they might try and guard him the same way. Obviously, the Kings have a lot more weapons than what Perth did last year. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Not that he'll go poorly, but if we saw a couple of lesser games than we did in round 1 by a semi-decent margin. So he should still be really good, but I wouldn't back him in to be the number 1 point scorer this round.
Darius Days, number 2 most popular trade. One of the great things with the imports in pricing for NBL SuperCoach is they all come in at 277,000. That's great for most of them. Days is coming off a double-double. And it's a double-double too, where I think, it's not like he scored 20 points. It's not like he had heaps of peripheral stats. He could do a lot better than what it was, and he's got a double game week. So to me, he's a pick out of the imports, out of that 277 price point. I think that he's probably the number 1 import at the moment. Dave, do you agree? Should people be running for Darius Days? Obviously, Adams and Days would be the ultimate combo, but a lot of teams might be able to afford both.
People people shouldn't be running. They should have already left. They should already be there. Like he just, again, like, I had the benefit of seeing him on the Thursday game in the Blitz, and I just remember sitting there in the stands and just going, man, who the hell is this bloke? Like, I said, this guy's amazing, and he just carried it on. I just loved it, loved everything he did on court. Price point makes sense. Barnesy, you mentioned like his score could have been a lot better. Like he had a couple threes that I dead set thought were in, and they sort of went in and went out, and I was like, oh god. So to me, just ticks all the boxes. It's to me just total no brainer. If you haven't already got him, to get him in. I feel really blessed that he was only 10% owned. Like for the round, I thought that was really good. I don't know how much he'll be traded in this week. Like, I really don't. But because we know there's lots of other options on these doubles up there that people could take. But for me, at that price point, it's just, I think he's excellent value. I think he's going to make some good coin, and we'll be able to flip him to another good piece in rounds 3 and 4.
I do think, Chad, that he might struggle, and your boys might actually struggle against my Kings a little bit compared to some of the other teams. But it's offset completely by the fact that his first game is going to be against Brisbane, and that's going to be at Wynn Entertainment Centre. So he could absolutely carve up for 60 points against Brisbane, honestly. So I think even if and that's the beauty of the double game weeks. I think that when you're looking at these schedules for some of these guys, you've got the benefit of, if it's a tough matchup, the other one can offset it. And I definitely think this is the case with Illawarra. I think that Brisbane matchup's golden, and that's who you want to be playing at the moment. And it doesn't really matter that they've got a second tough one. Now, if you've got two tough ones, that's a double game week where you look at the other guys on double game weeks. But there's no way that I could not be looking at days. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I reckon that you've considered captaining him this week yourself.
Oh, yeah. I think in early doors, but I think he's probably close to top scorer for the round. I agree with you that he probably should do really well. First, his actual first home game in Wollongong, obviously the Blitz being up your way, Dave, or close to your way. So being in front of this home fans, not the same building that he torched the Hawks in the preseason game for Shanghai, but I think he's a bit of the excitement machine, and the crowd will all get around him a bit. So I think, that's penciled in for a pretty big game. I don't think he'll do too badly. Like, obviously maybe not quite as high as we saw this week, but he probably might not go so badly against the Kings. The fact that there'll be quite a few different pieces moving around, I actually think that's going to be a cracking game anyway. But I don't think he's going to do too poorly. I will probably bring him in, and we'll be very tempted to put the C on him.
There's some other star players that are pretty popular at the moment. Trez Harrell obviously came in with a bang. Only added to SuperCoach days before we actually opened for the season, and it was more popular than I thought that he would be. You know, you've always got the adjustments to make and everything, but he got a really easy double, couple of blocks, high energy, played like he did in the NBA, which I had question marks about because he's come off an injury layoff. He hasn't been playing, and you got all that. And I did see inklings of some frustration at the transition to the NBL, but he just plays so hard and with so much energy. He looks like he's just going to keep getting doubles. I was surprised how many minutes he got to off the bench. So it all looks good, but he's not someone that has a double this week. So to me, like Dave, I know you're the ultimate double game guy. I just see Montrezl as a guy that you just leave and watch another week and look at the following week. And if he's still doing it, he's going to be the same price, and you're going to have options that week.
Yeah. Look, definitely passed the eye test. I thought he was very, very dominant for a bloke that hasn't played a lot of basketball. A, because he's had that injury, and B, hasn't really been in the country that long. It was that his signing was pretty late, but he just looks hungry. Looked like he really, really wanted to make an impact. If I see that again in round 2, if I see what he did in round 2 and I see that hunger, I'll definitely change the thoughts and plans I had around who I was planning to bring in, because I think if he demonstrates that again, I think that he would be very valuable for the round 3 and 4 Adelaide double game week.
Yeah, I mean, Chad, I guess there is. I'll probably be a bit harsh on people going early on him. There is going to be the issue of planning where people are going to be saying to themselves, "Look, I want to get a Cairns player in, and maybe Davis from Adelaide in. So if I'm doing that in round 3, I don't have room for Harold, and I need to get him in now," type of thing. There is going to be some of that planning going on, and I think that you can definitely look at it that way. Planning is great, but you've got to make sure that it's right for your team because it's so team dependent. Because if you're a team that's got heaps of doubles already this week, then sure, I think you can do it if that's in your plans, and helps you out the following round in the future. But if you're a team with not many doubles, then you just can't make trades like this.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. Obviously, we'll know Taron Armstrong until he comes back in that round makes it a little bit better. There's one person we might not want to target. Well, we probably wouldn't target straight away, but yeah, there'll be a few guys from Cairns, Tanner Groves, even Bradshaw can pick it up, and then Harold could be insane. Similar to what Dave was saying, coming off that big knee injury was not ideal. This is the kind of performance that I was kind of expecting, maybe his third, fourth game in, but the fact that he's done it so early is very, very intriguing. I think that as Dave said, if he's anywhere at the same sort of level of intensity and performance, and obviously adjustment to FIBA game and all that sort of stuff this week, then he's probably priority 1 round 3.
Yep, agreed. Look, there's a whole heap of guys that are sort of cheap to mid-range type of price. And I'm just going to throw out there straight away. We're not going to go through Ulbrich because if you don't own him, he's a must-have. Double game week, perfect price point. Henschel, probably not a must-have, guys. But I mean, if you're looking for someone who's, bottom dollar, just about, then he's got to be the number one guy. So that makes sense. Whole heap of other guys now. We've got very similar. We've got Mayan. We've got Rob Lowe. We've got Alex Tui. And we got Lepepe is probably more of a bottom price guy. But really, to me, I'm looking at Tui, Lowe, and Mayan and thinking that these teams have to pick one of these guys. And as much as I like Mayan, I'd even use a boost the following week to be getting him in then when he's on the double. I think that he's going probably above these other guys when I would rather Tui or Lowe on the double game weeks, particularly with their future double game weeks and their money making. I tend to prefer Tui and Lowe. I ended up with Lowe. And it was sort of, I had him at the start and then I didn't have him again until a few hours before tip off of round 1. It was lucky that I got him back in. I thought he looked really good. You got a guy scoring in the mid-20s. It's only 173K. And then he's coming into a double game week this round. I like that he can hit the 3 a bit. He can rebound a bit. He can block a bit. And he's involved. And he's going to get minutes in that United rotation. But likewise, Tui's going to get his opportunities. He was only 1 of 7 for the first half. So as a Kings fan, I was a little bit concerned. But then he hit some really good shots and got some good steals and made some good plays in the second half. When we're having a look at, Mayan versus Tui versus Lowe, all similar type of price range, how are you ranking those 3, Dave?
I rank Lowe first. Look, I started with him, to start the year. Look, really like the looks of him in the blitz when I was up there and seeing him. And then I like the fact he had the DPP status and the price point. He would definitely be my number 1 target because they've got the round 2 and 3 double game weeks together, and just that added flexibility. Look, I really liked what I saw of Tui yesterday. Obviously looked ordinary in the first half, but he came good. Obviously we know that he's got all that potential, to be, to be a star of the future. So look, I would rank him second, mainly because he's got that double game week. Look, Mayan looked really great, right? He looked really, really good, played good minutes, price points right, has a double game weeks in round 3 and 4. I'm assuming if you are bringing him in this week, like I am considering, you are only doing it to put him on the bench. I think it's less important to have double game week players. That whole thing about double game week players is more important on court. On the bench, if you can have people with a focus of making money, I think that's okay. The only thing that I think people need to be a little bit wary of, and I know I've sort of traded him out overnight a few times. I think he shot at like 81% yesterday, and his career is like, well, put it this way, I think last year was like 48%. I think the previous year was under 40. So I don't think that he's going to be shooting at 81%, obviously. So it's not a buyer beware. I think that he's playing them at his price point. If he's playing 24, 25, 26 minutes, that's awesome, right? But we just have to realize that he's not going to be shooting at 81%. Yeah, so
Oh, something was going on with RAC Arena yesterday. What did the Kings were what, 5 or 6 of their, or 4 or 5 of their first threes went down. DJ was hitting fade away, falling out triples. Yeah, I don't know. The baskets might have suited Latmain a fair bit yesterday based off those numbers.
Which is your order for these guys? Are you pretty much in agreement that Lowe should probably be first, Tui second, Mayan next week?
Yeah, I've gone the same route. Obviously, Mayan is the cheapest, but yeah, as Dave said, the Melbourne have got the back-to-back doubles like no other team, and Sydney with a double this week. Tui had that great preseason. He's continued that over. It didn't start the best, but he's aggressive. Gorgon's still putting him out there. I think it was positive that Galloway only played the 3-4 minute, whatever it was, didn't play that much. Robertson had that DNP CD, so even though it did get a little bit, obviously it was a game of runs, but the Kings were up quite a bit and it ended up being semi-close. But the fact that Tui was still getting all that burn, I think is a really positive sign. He's someone that if you need someone that you could potentially start this week as a bit of a downgrade so you could upgrade somewhere else, you'd be happy with that. Mayan, it's probably tough. One of the things that obviously, Dave, you brought up before about the price rises, the fact that he had such that big game in round 1, it's not the end of the world if you wait this week to see if he has something similar. Then you probably really want to jump on in round 3. But if he goes back a little bit and say this week it's Nick Marshall that has that big game and Latmain's not getting quite the minutes, or a Cadiz lighting it up, so they're shifting everybody up a little bit and playing a little bit smaller ball, it's definitely a good one to watch. I'll be doing that. I don't think I'll bring him in as a benchy this week, just in case. But if you've got the flexibility, you can shift it around someone that is on your bench, whether they're on a double or a single, or you had a Casey Prather, that's perfect. You can move across, keep him there, and be ready to go. But of those 3, if you don't own Rob Lowe, I'd seriously be considering getting him in.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same as you guys, so I won't go over it again. I will just say with Mayan, I think whenever anyone is that surprising that you didn't expect to score so well, both in his real life scoring and also his Supercoach scoring, that should be your first flag to say, I need to watch more of this guy. It's a bit different if Bryce Cotton's left the league for 3 years and he comes in and scores a 40. You know that he's going to keep going. Whereas if Latmain comes and does it out of nowhere, you probably need to watch Mayan again for another week or two to have a look, because, look, Drimick's the same for Tassie. Drimick scored the first, 8 points in the first 2 minutes and he finished on 11 or 13 points. Guys can have a nice little run in a game. It doesn't mean that they're going to, keep being that guy. Look, time constraints, so we'll finish up very shortly. Quickly on Shea really was great. I think that he's probably the best guy at 250k to be targeting if you got the money to do it instead of some of these cheaper guys. But quick pods and captains. Pods wise, I'm going to say there's some big names that aren't on the top 10 most popular guys. Walton Jr. and Hurt are 2 of the SEM players that I think are very interesting. Particularly, I actually thought for 277,000, Hurt was actually quite impressive. Rebounded well. Cooks, probably a bit too high a price point, and I will say I thought that he probably couldn't have played any better than he did. He was probably a little bit more aggressive shooting than I thought, and he hit his free throws and threes, which I don't think he's going to do very often. Delhi, I actually think, deserves a bit more attention. 34 points coming into a double game week at 312. He's cheaper than the Waltons and the Cooks. So, I mean, Chad, have you looked at any of these pod options? Because people, well, some of them are reasonably highly owned. People aren't trading them in this week. They're really gravitating towards all the other guys we spoke about.
Yeah, 2 of those names that you just mentioned, I had down. Matt Hurt, he's less than 3% at the moment, and Delhi's under 5. If you've got a Bryce Cotton and you went down to a Delhi, that's a lot of money that frees up that you could do a decent upgrade on the other piece to have a stronger starting option on court. Wisecamp wasn't too bad for Sem. He's about 5% owned. And then if you needed a bench option, say you have someone that you can switch around as a starter already in place, he wasn't lights out, but Marcus Lee, he's about 10% owned. They've got the back-to-back doubles. If you need that sort of cheapy bench guy, mightn't be too bad, especially if you don't have Rob Lowe, you do have Rob Lowe and you needed a couple of bench guys. That was the main pieces that I looked at. But yeah, if one more might be a Geordie Hunter, if you feel like he can go a little bit better, similar to Hurt. The Phoenix going to put up a lot of shots, so there's a lot of rebounds on display. So he's under 10%. If you need another semi-cheap option, Dave, I know you were looking at him early doors for starting. So is he someone that might be a good pod option for people?
I actually was surprised he scored so low because I thought he looked awesome. I thought I loved the connection that him and Walton Jr. had on the court. I was like, wow, where's it? Where's this? These guys look unstoppable. I don't know what it was. Like he looked like he just played so well. I thought he was doing all the rebounds and stuff, but the score just wasn't there. But look, coming off a double, he's pretty cheap, low owned. We do know that he can hit that 30 mark, like he did it a couple of times last year. The thing that ended up turning me off Geordie in the end was the fact he didn't have the DPP status. I've started looking at my team going, you know what? I don't have enough flexibility. And when I started looking at the flexibility, I was like, okay, the more DPPs that I have in that top level, if I get an injury or something like that, I've just got that little bit more flexibility to flip players around. So that's why I sort of made my decision. Part of the reason I chose your lows and all that sort of stuff, because I had, that flexibility in mind.
He just doesn't seem to ever get like the 30 minutes a game type of thing. Even if he's playing well, they just sort of cap him at sort of 24, 25. That's been his career, and he rebounds and scores well, but doesn't quite get enough of everything else. And I'm not out of those guys for me quickly. Sam, I'm a bit scared of, so I would leave them. I think that Delhi is a known commodity. United looks good. They've got the back-to-back doubles. That's the easy one at 312,000. So that's my pod pick. Captaincy picks. Dave, quickly, favourite couple of captains for this round before we finish up.
In order for me, Derek Walton Jr., Darius Days, and Sam Froling.
Oh, Chad.
Yep, I'll stick with Days as well. But yeah, as mentioned earlier, Jack White, I think he'll be right up there, and I don't mind Derek Walton Jr. as well.
Jeez, I can't believe I'm the only one out of the three of us that's going to say Jalen Adams. He served me well last round. I'm going to ride him. I think that Jalen Adams, I think he's my probable captain. The other ones that I'll quickly mention as well, to reiterate what you guys said, Days and Walton Jr., but I was tossing up for my third pick between him and actually a bit of a smoky Delhi. Delhi across 2 games, I thought might go all right as well. Tassie's a bit hard, but I do like the local matchup of Sem versus United, and I think that Delhi might score a 40-pluser in that one at least. So that is the show for this week. SC Hub NBL. Good work, Chad. Good work, DVG. Glad to have you both on. Glad to get on and chat to you guys. I'll be on every couple of weeks. You guys will be jumping on as well. But Chad, good luck this week to you first of all.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully it's a big bounce back from week 1. Fingers crossed anyway.
And I only met SuperCoach. I hope Yellow Hawks lose by 40. But DVG.
Name of the round, that one.
Good luck to you, mate, as well. And
thanks, guys.
Unfortunate about your Bulldogs last week, but you can watch NBL now.
Yeah, it was a really tough weekend. Dogs losing, and look, it's been a great season, but Dogs losing, and then I'm an Eagles supporter in the NFL, and then 2 days later I saw them almost get paid to lose at home in the last 1 minute. So it was a pretty brutal couple days of sport for DVG. But look, the NBL SuperCoach score perked me up, and honestly, just on the basketball, seeing Hoops Fest. look, congratulations to the NBL. They did such a wonderful job over in Perth. It was a great initiative. I did try and ask the wife whether or not I could miss a couple of mortgage payments so I could go over there for the house, but it was met with a few slam doors. But look, it's something that I really, after seeing it all on TV, I followed it a lot on the socials. Look, I think it's a great event. I think that everything they've done with it is great. Talk is that they're looking about trying to secure it again with the Western Australian government. I really want to save my pennies and try and make it work because it looked just something great to be part of.
I thought it was great too. So well done, NBL. Maybe just turn the volume down on the music for the old men like me that just want to watch basketball. But aside from that, all right. Enjoy the week in SuperCoach, everyone. If everyone listening, make sure you follow the SC Hub for all of the news. Make sure you jump on the Discord server too. I'm sure we've got it all popping up on the screen now. And you can follow me at NRL_SC_All-Stars, NRL podcast during the NRL, but I'll certainly be talking a lot of basketball in the off-season. Good luck for the week, everyone, and hopefully you pick the right captain and we can talk about all the massive scores again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.